swagger, okay? Regardless of what happens out there. Doesn't matter. Keep your swagger.
Hey, what's going on, gang? It's your host today, TJ Branson. I got the 5-hole week 25 preview. We got the script in and we're ready to read it. I missed the last couple weeks. Big shout out to Alan and Jay for holding down the fort. I got the scars to prove it, but I got 16 yards of dirt delivered to the house, and wifey didn't like it in the driveway, so I spent literally all my time shoveling dirt. Yeah, and I was pretty beat up. But we got the week 25 preview for you today. Got to get it done today because last night I didn't get in till like midnight. Things got all messed up. Dallas had a bunch of weather. Started in El Paso, hit Dallas, Key West, then Philly. So lots of delays, lots of late aircraft, some maintenance, and pilots who were 8 minutes away from timing out. So it was a day. But let's get into it, man. We're going to start off with the injuries. Before we get into that, just want to throw out a huge thank you to everybody who, hung with us for the year. It's been a weird one. Raj going through some stuff, Craig adjusting to his new house and new routine and things like that. And Maddie, gets busy during this time of the year. Alan and Jay still hanging tough. Myself, trying to get these week previews out with my non-routine schedule as best as I can. So everybody, thank you for hanging out. We're going to try to find like a middle ground between good content and being able to, do something that lines up with the way that our schedules go for next year, but still going to be the same kind of stuff. So Discord, if you guys want to throw out any recommendations, things you like to hear, things you like to see, and we'll get that going. So let's get into the week preview, starting off with injuries. And Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, that's going to kind of headline this one. Left Thursday's game, Draisaitl, this is undisclosed. Could be back sometime this week. They're saying potentially. So big question mark there. Connor McDavid was out. No timeline mentioned. I don't know. This is what happens late in the year. Maybe they hold him out just to hold off till playoffs, but I don't think so. Chances are we'll see him again. Matthias Ekholm, Stuart Skinner did not join the team on the recent road trip. Skinner's out. Picard's the starter to end the, what do we got, like 11 days left. So Picard's going to be your guy going forward if you're like really invested in Edmonton's defense or need a goalie in any fashion. So that's one option. Pettersson, as of this weekend, like I did most of my notes yesterday and Friday because originally I was planning to land at like 8 p.m. on Saturday. So I had fully planned on being able to record this last night, go live last night. So sorry if my notes are a little dated here, but Pettersson as of Friday wasn't skating. Return is uncertain. Vancouver's not looking too great. So Jaden Schwartz, Ellie Tolvanen, Seattle, they were game time decisions for Saturday. And in Anaheim, there's a little bit of uncertainty around the goalie situation. Dostal's probably just going to ride a bunch of the starts. They called up Ville Husso. I don't see him getting a ton of action, but I would think that Dostal is your guy moving forward. Jamie Benn is, he's kind of like, he's getting back, right? He there's a chance he comes back for Dallas. Dallas is actually heating up pretty tough right now. Sneaking up on Winnipeg and sneaking up on Washington as well. But let me see if I can get the standings up here. Here we go. Yeah, here they are. They are just sneaking up right up there with Winnipeg and the Capitals. Really doing good in their last series of games. Them and St. Louis. Like, look at this. Look at St. Louis. Nothing but up. And last night was no different. They were looking really good. See, that's just a straight line up over the last, 11, 12 games for St. Louis. Really, really, really good stuff. Back into the injuries here. Dylan Holloway, he was out last night and probably going to be out again tomorrow on Monday the 7th versus Winnipeg. He's got a lower body injury. He was such a great, like, the whole storyline behind the offer sheets and then just the season that he's had. You look in the rear view, gifted hindsight bias right now that we can talk about. Edmonton probably could have used a Holloway. They could have used a Broberg, but I'm liking what they're doing in St. Louis just because it seems like they're giving them the opportunity that, I mean, twofold, that they wouldn't have gotten in Edmonton just because of how stocked their top power play, to stacked their top two lines are. They give Jeff Skinner some time, Pod Colson and whatever alongside McDavid and things like that, but you didn't really see that from Holloway and Broberg, looking pretty good. But anyway, there it is for St. Louis. St. Louis doing pretty well as it is, so good for them. Barkov out for the weekend. It's not too serious. Florida's looking pretty good. They're not scoring a ton right now, which is something that I had just seen. So goals for per game, the 5-game rolling average, Florida is way down here, behind San Jose. So I can't even really key in on them. Whatever, but they're there. So let's see. Clear all, Florida. There they are. 5-game rolling average. Not looking great. But yeah, Florida's still doing okay. Still kind of top of the standings for themselves and doing pretty decently. Buffalo way up at the top in that 5-game rolling average. They are scoring a ton. All right. Brad Marchand, he's playing, and I don't know if this is going to be one of those acquisitions that really, puts Florida over the top. It looks great. He's getting a little extra power play time with Barkov out, Kachuk out. We're going to see what they look like in the playoffs. Not that it matters for us in fantasy, the regular season here, but I think he's going to be more complimentary when it comes to a full healthy roster and things like that. But right now he's getting a little extra time. Hasn't been doing too much with it, contributing here and there. But yeah, we'll see what we get out of it. Brady Kachuk, he did not skate on Friday. Just kind of keep up with him. Zibanejad is sick, and that's tough because the New York Rangers have a really good schedule this week. So I wonder if there's going to be some extra opportunity for another center somewhere. Logan Thompson, he's going to miss some games. Charlie Lindgren right now is he's your guy, and you got to run him. They're playing tomorrow? I think it is Monday night. Yeah, against the Islanders. Hopefully that's when Ovi breaks the record. That would be pretty rad. That game was awesome. I was in, where the hell was I? El Paso, and they had like the oldest TV known to man. So, 6 channels. I wasn't able to watch it. I was kind of just farting around on my phone watching it. Was able to see. That was pretty awesome. Glad that Gretzky was in attendance for that one. In Colorado, Nietzsche and Druin both injured in the same game. They were questionable yesterday. Nietzsche, he kind of did a thing with his neck that my wife won't let me do. So, good for him. He got one out. Duclair, he is taking one out. He's taken some time, just I guess to like reflect on where he is mentally. But that's hopefully brain front and center is good for Duclair. Svechnikov, he's not going to play this weekend. They're just being cautious with him. I don't like. I mean, we've been kind of critical of Svechnikov, saying maybe he's not worth the hype, and this wasn't a good season for him. And I'm already hearing people in our circles talk about next season and things like that. And we've been saying that since his rookie year. So I don't know. I'm kind of, this is going to be more off-season content, but I feel like we've seen Svechnikov, and until there's a new coach, I don't think we're going to see a ceiling that all of us expect. And the coach has been doing really well, so there's no real end of the tunnel for Rod Brindamore right now, and he's just not somebody that consistently plays these kinds of guys to translate to fantasy hockey. So, hey, see what it is. Protas left Friday's game. Don't really know what it is. Looks like he might have caught a skate. Yeah, that's one that you're just gonna have to watch. He might be done. Matt Murray practiced in Toronto. Tomas Hertl, he might practice soon, and Matt Boldy missed some practice. So there we go on that. For the injuries, let's get into some storylines. The Washington Capitals game, I mean, that one was twofold. We saw Ryan Leonard got his first goal, empty net goal. Good for him. even if he is an empty net merchant so far, so early in his career. But what I like to see out of him is he is banging bodies, like he's throwing the hits around, and that's kind of what, prior to his inauguration into the league and things like that, like he was supposed to be a heavy hitter and kind of like a multi-cat guy, and it looks like he's really living up to that. So his profile definitely translates to what he's been doing. And then, I mean, for Ovechkin, what can you say? You can't. Tied the record in one last game. That is crazy cool. And I know people are talking, oh, he's got 65 empty net goals, yada yada yada. Look what Ovechkin did. He could have broken the record during that game, chose not to go out on the ice because of the empty net. He was like, no, I want it to be, this ought to be against the goalie. And I thought that was really cool. So good for him on that one. I liked that move. Very classy. So kudos to him, man. Congrats for breaking or tying the record at this point. I think I read a stat somewhere. I forget who tweeted it out, but like he's never scored on Sorokin. And that's going to be the game. And then we were joking in the Discord. Joel was saying, who's excited to watch the Islanders game? And I was just like, Jesus Christ, that's the first time I've ever read that sentence ever. So yeah, it's going to be a fun one. The ticket prices are exorbitant. There it is. This is the part of the year where teams start to look at maybe resting their stars. We could talk about Barkov, Svechnikov. I mean, Yossi, that was a couple weeks ago, but Nashville is kind of out of it. So you look at the left and the right of the bell curve. Teams that are clinched, teams that are eliminated. If somebody gets if they tweak something, right? If one of their best players tweaks something, and it could be, oh, he might be back in 3-4 days. At this point, what's the point? Why not just on either side of the spectrum, on either side of the bell curve, why not just let them chill? Whether it's to get ready for an off season, to get to kind of find yourself for next season, or if it's just to get a couple extra days to heal up for the playoffs. So that is a big reason why, and I hate to beat a broken record here, but playing this week is brutal. In your fantasy league. So most fantasy leagues might be done already. A lot of the ones that I'm in are, and some other ones go until this week and kind of like let off the last 4 days up till Thursday. And that's how I'm going to treat this episode. So I'm going to be talking about the 11-day scope as like one bucket. So if you're only in a league that doesn't play next week, that's only playing these next 7 days, this one might not be catered to you, but I do have sort of like I could throw some stuff in just because I haven't coded the game grid to handle like 2 weeks or date range or anything like that. So the scores that I have, the way that the game grid chooses teams and things like that is on a 1 week basis. So you can play with the game grid there. And we're looking like right now. So Montreal has a pretty decent schedule going into it. They're on a hot streak and they're hungry, right? They're right on the wild card race. So one of the teams that I'm going to be highlighting here, even though there's not many options from this team, is Montreal. And other teams that are kind of in this hunt. Columbus is right up there. The New York Rangers are up there. Even though Montreal is a bit above both of those teams in the standings points wise, they're still hungry and they still, they want to try. They're not taking the foot off the gas. So those are teams that I really like to key in on late in the season, like we are. And for the past 3 weeks is, those teams that are going out, giving 150% every single game just to get those 2 points. So that's where it is. Let's get into some trends, just guys that we want to talk about, that might lead into our pickups for the week. Jack Quinn, Ryan McLeod, a lot of Buffalo. Like I was saying, let's see. Can I bring it back up here? That's the wrong one. So let's look at Buffalo, man. They're doing really well. Their 5-game rolling average, they are the top team for goals for per game. They're scoring a lot, especially over the last little bit here. So that's awesome. And then you throw the 10-game rolling average in it too, and Buffalo still finds themselves over the last 10 games and a 10-game rolling average. They're looking good. They're scoring a lot. The Blues are right up there, as you would expect, with their win streak. The Los Angeles Kings and the Toronto Maple Leafs also at the top. And then we find Boston, Nashville, Florida, kind of at the bottom. It looks like, I don't know who's behind there. Maybe the Senators behind the Sharks. I'm going to have to fix the UX on that one. So, yeah. That is why I want to talk about some of these hot streaks. Like, we're far from, long-term pickup territory or anything like that. But when we're thinking about like, pickups for this week or for the championship week, we can look at teams that are performing like this, like Buffalo or St. Louis or what was the other one? Montreal, that we can talk about. Teams that are hungry, teams that are performing, teams that are on hot streaks, that you can really kind of start to curate your list for pickups depending on what you need. And if offense is one of those teams, that's where we start to look, is Buffalo, Montreal, those hungry teams right now. So that's where I got Jack Quinn, JJ Paterka, some other guys like, Anaheim's got a couple semi-hot guys. Leo Carlson's right at the top of that. Mason McTavish as well. Trevor Zegras is somebody we're talking about. Boone Jenner out of Columbus has been great in his truncated season this year. And then, Taylor Hall kind of on a streak right now, getting some different deployment, as is the custom in Carolina. But right now he's in the top 6. So he's worth checking out. Some defensemen that are on hot streaks, Jackson Lacombe, somebody worth checking about. Mario Ferraro, somehow throwing points on top of his peripherals, which he's known for. And then we got guys like Braden Schneider, who's going to come up when I talk about peripheral defensemen for the New York Rangers. He's kind of in his ownership bucket. He's at the top percentile of those folks who block and hit. So I love his peripherals. Matt Grzelcyk is getting some power play time. Tony DeAngelo on the Islanders, looking pretty decent. Some goalies that are worth checking out. I want you to pay attention to Peter Mrazek, whether or not he comes back from injury, because Detroit during this 2-week matchup, 1 week and a half matchup, whatever, Detroit's got 2 back-to-backs. So you can look at Cam Talbot, and then if Peter Mrazek comes back, he's like 10% rostered right now. So he's out there, and you might get 2 starts out of him, and he's looked pretty decent. Some cold streaks, that's where we find Brad Marchand. The Minnesota Wild offense has not looked so good. So I can bring back that 10-game average, and that's where we start to see some of these, like here's the Minnesota Wild over the last 10 games is pretty solidly at the bottom. Like their offense has not been super great since like the midpoint of the season. And some other cold streaks, that's where you're going to find Boston. They've just kind of been on a nosedive recently. So those are some players to maybe avoid, especially in our championship week like this. Like Calgary has a really good schedule, but Jonathan Huberdeau has been cold. So yes, he's going to come up as a streamer possibility, but you have to kind of find your own threshold for risk. And that's where you'll decide on somebody like Jonathan Huberdeau. Some goalies who have been cold. I mean, Merzlikins has been there. The wins are there, but he's getting the quality or the quantity, just not the quality. So it depends. Like if you're in a league where wins kind of like shoulders most of the point production or category production for you, Merzlikins can still kind of like tread water, but the ratios have been grabbed. So yeah. All right, let's get into the actual script for the week. Week 25. This is a longer week, and check your league settings to see if your acquisitions, if they reset on Sunday. Some Fantrax ones will. I know the weeks like this, like Christmas, and I think right before the Four Nations, we had an extended week where the acquisitions did not reset. So that's going to be important for you. Like if you blow your load before Sunday, then you're kind of dead in the water. So that's one thing to absolutely check. And I think you have to do that on desktop. I don't think you can do that on mobile. So log on to those computer guys, check it out. But I think this is going to be one of those things where you're going to see a lot of players getting dropped, like high name players, especially if you don't have that, can't cut list or something like that, where everybody is expendable. And you start to see like where teams, when they're not playing as much, like Colorado during the week 2, where they at? They're probably down here at the bottom. Yeah, they got nothing in week 2. So that's where you cut even your McKinnon, right? Where if unless you're in a keeper league where you're keeping that guy or McCarr or something like that, but you got to get rid of these guys because they're not going to do anything for you except take up a bench spot that could be a streamer. So that's where you need to set your lineups, see who's spending the most time on your bench, and those are going to be the first guys to drop. And this right here is a 1 week, 2 week look at our game grid. I actually did a big facelift to the game grid. You guys might dig some of the stuff that's going on over there. I added a best player available table, an opponent average stats table where, say, oh yeah, like Boston has a really good week, but then you kind of find out like Boston's fucked because their opponents are pretty good. Like their win percentage is 54%. So the teams that they're playing win a lot of games. Anaheim, the win percentage of their opponents is 40%. They're going up against some weak opponents. So I thought that was useful. Hopefully you guys can find something there. But what we're going to be using later on in this episode is the BPA table, the best player available table, and it's got a little bit of a banger skew right now because it takes these categories: points, goals, assists, shots, power play points, blocks, hits, faceoffs, PIM, shorthanded points. And it takes the percentile of the players within, right now it's set to 50% ownership. So everybody that's 0 to 50%, it finds out the percentile rank of that player within that ownership threshold. So if I widen it to 100%, then I think Josh Norris was up there at the top. His percentile rank is going to go down. And it does have a banger skew just because it treats hits and blocks the same as goals and assists right now. I'm thinking about maybe adding a customizable weighting system, or I was talking to Jeff in the Discord, one of our patrons there. He said I should make a checkbox for categories. So if you're only looking for blocks, you can check the blocks thing and then find out players within your ownership range that are available that do well in blocks. So that's one thing I'm thinking about adding. Well, not thinking about. I am going to add it. I'm going to work on it this week. It was a really good idea. So thank you, Jeff. But I just wanted to say, like, this score over here right now heavily skews towards bangers. Like if we look at, let's take the goalies out of here too. Like Vincent Trocheck being the second most valuable player, JT Miller right behind him, Tom Wilson above McKinnon. We start to see that there's a banger skew. So we're going to work on it. And, the BPA table likes players a little more than I do. So I'm going to be kind of bouncing all over the place with these things, but use it for what you like. I'm going to add some extra customizability. Why is my brain not working? Customability. Yeah, I don't think that's the right word. Customizability to the BPA table, but I thought it might be something you guys are into. It's pretty rad. I think it's pretty neat. And hopefully it's useful here in the last week of the season. But yeah, I finally figured out Yahoo, the integration with Yahoo and their ownership and their positions and things like that. So for next season, I think this will be a pretty invaluable tool. But where are we? See what happens. I'm just rambling, guys. Sorry about that. So we talked trends. Let's get into the strategy section. Volume is going to be what we're looking at. So a lot of teams and a lot of places are going to be talking about off nights, and yes, they are important, and that's where I got derailed, didn't I? We're dropping guys like McKinnon on Sunday. We're dropping guys like McCarr on Sunday, so we can make room for these streamers for the second week. And that's where I kind of find like off nights start to lose a little bit of their value, because off nights are valued because you can play players and you don't need to bench other players. But like right now we're being ruthless, right? Like, so if somebody is not performing, there's no, like, it's a hair trigger. You're just dropping them because you gotta get somebody who's performing. You gotta get somebody who's playing. So off nights might not have the weight that you think it does. Like if you have a pretty well structured roster, well curated, like, everybody's kind of doing their thing. They're performing as you need them to. Then yes, I think off nights are going to have a little bit of weight. So take your roster into consideration for this one, especially. But I think if we can get volume out of this one with an 11-day slate, if we're playing 2 weeks, and you only have 4 acquisitions, don't think so much as like, oh, I got to pick one guy up for all 11 days, but think of it as spot starts and things like that. Yeah, you can make a pickup for the entire span and then kind of, sprinkle in this guy, that guy around him. But I think volume is going to play a big part. So we're looking at quantity more so than quality of days and things like that. The early week, the players that we're looking at, in the first kind of half of this 11-day slate: Edmonton, San Jose, Calgary, Tampa. They start 4 games, and Anaheim, New York Rangers, Seattle. They got 3 by, I think. Did I include Sunday? I might have. But yeah, let's look at Saturday, Sunday. That's last week. So let's move towards this week, where it starts on the 7th. So the top scoring teams for this one: Tampa, they got 3 games, all on off nights to start this first half of the 11-day slate. Edmonton, Calgary, San Jose start with 3 games, 3 off nights. So those are the teams that, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because Edmonton's a terrible team to stream from. San Jose is scoring basically the worst in the league over the last 10 games. Calgary's kind of at the bottom, and New York Rangers are up there too. They've got the oh shit, let me throw this up. I'm looking at it like you guys can see it. Where is it? Here we go. So with Saturday and Sunday turned off because they're heavy nights, and if we even do the same thing with Thursday and Tuesday, the best teams to stream from right there: Tampa, Edmonton, Calgary, San Jose. Edmonton is super top heavy. It starts to, like, the ownership threshold kind of starts to break right around Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson, which is brutal because I don't want to put my eggs in those baskets. You know what I mean? So that's a really tough gamble to make in a championship week. So what I, at this point, would want to do is start to look at like Tampa, look at Calgary, even San Jose has a lot of guys that I think are reliable. It's just, I think San Jose is kind of in a weird slump right now at the end of the season, which is going to get in your head because if you're losing games and you're like, well, we only have 6 games left, we only have 5 games left, things like that. Like, maybe mentally these players start to kind of check out, right? They're already booking their vacations and yada, yada, yada. So I don't know if San Jose is just in that point where management and the coaching, they're like, let's just make sure we have good odds for a draft pick and things like that. Like, we don't need to win. We need to like just work on defense. Like, let's fundamentals, yada, yada, yada. So I do like some of the players, but I also wanted to enter that caveat that, San Jose is not playing especially well right now. So yes, Will Smith a month ago was having a streak that nobody had heard of. And guys like Toffoli are out there who a lot of the times have like a pretty good rapport and a portfolio of being a streamer. But yeah, and Minnesota looks pretty good. They've got 2 games, 2 off nights, so they score really well with the game grid. But they are in a really weird spot right now. Like, I don't even know what team they are. So is what it is. But early week, we got those guys. Midweek, that's where we start to look at like Saturday, Sunday, if you've got any room. They're not especially heavy nights, but I don't hate it. The boys are going to have you settled for a weekend preview, and I wonder if they're going to talk about, I think Alan said something to the effect of like talking about next week and things like that. Like, him and Jay are going to kind of like rehash and kind of like do a second half of the week thing. So let's get into roster construction. The heavy nights, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. So Sunday's usually an off night for us, and it's got that last 9 games. It's not a heavy night, but it's not a light night either. And then Monday's a heavy-ish off night. Tuesday, and Tuesday's the last heavy night of the season, and then Wednesday, Thursday are both light nights, and then Thursday's right on that border with 7 games. So next week, pretty friendly to streaming, like, especially because you're going to clear out your roster if you're not in a keeper league. Like, everybody who's not playing or playing 1 game, things like that, like, you just pitch them, and that's where your pickups are going to be. And like, if this was the middle of the year, I'd say like, oh, it'd be perfect to save your pickups for the end, like the back half. But you got to find a good balance because you don't want to blow your load in the first 4 days panicking, maybe because you down 30 points or whatever 30 points means to you in your league, and just panicking and then be left with nothing, while your opponent might have some extra moves to go out the rest of the season. So balance yourself, find a good middle ground, because you're going to want at least 1 or 2 pickups on this back half. The off nights, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. If you have space on heavy nights, you got to focus on those BPAs, the best player available, with the most games. So it's, this is fantasy hockey 101 stuff. Best games, best available player, off nights, right? Like those are the 3 things we're going to focus on when we're looking at streamers. And that's what sucks, is because Edmonton and San Jose are the teams that kind of fit that mold. And then you got like Calgary, Detroit, New York, Tampa right behind them, with those 2 categories there. And again, we're just going to drop guys that are either underperforming, not performing, or have bad schedules. And you can't really, like, there's no room for sentimentality right now. All right. Teams with 4 games: Boston, Colorado, Minnesota. Let me get my 4-week. Where's the 4-week thing? Here we go. So if we sort by, there's not 4 weeks left, so it's just taking the rest of the schedule. That's because I have it set to last week. So for the rest of the season, as soon as this updates here, these are the best teams, and you can see it right under me. That's where Edmonton, San Jose, Calgary, Tampa are. But if we toggle it to the worst teams, Colorado's got 4 games, no off nights. Boston's in the same boat. Seattle right behind them with 5 games, 1 off night to remain. So as soon as these teams are done with their seasons, drop everybody. And that's, if you're in a keeper league, obviously you want to keep your keepers, but everybody else is dead weight. And obviously, you can hold on to guys that, if you don't need, like, if you're out of pickups, like if you're just, you don't want to run with like 4 guys on your roster, is what I'm getting at. So like, you don't need to drop everybody, but if it makes more sense to you, go for it. Teams that have 6 games, those high volume teams, that's where we're going to find the Edmonton, the San Jose, Calgary. And then it does kind of spread out here, but it likes Montreal a little bit better because it has that extra off night. Toronto's got some tough opponents here, but 6 games, 2 off nights. Carolina, same deal. Their opponents are pretty tough. 57% of their opponents are winning games. And then the Islanders have 6 games. Columbus has 6 games, and Buffalo as well. So those are the teams we're going to be talking about this episode here. So for me, the best teams, unfortunately, are Edmonton and San Jose. And then my tier 2 for teams to stream from, that's where I'm going to look at Calgary, Tampa, the New York Rangers, and Detroit. Tier 3, Los Angeles Kings, they're going to wind up there. Anaheim, Montreal. Tier 4, Columbus, Buffalo, the New York Islanders, Carolina, Toronto. Now, the streamer suggestions. We're going to be, it's going to be tough because we're going to talk Edmonton. So, I mean, look at who's available. If somebody has gotten frustrated with like an RNH or a Hyman, obviously add those guys. But Nurse for hits and blocks, he's 70% rostered. Wallman right around 70 as well. And that's where we start to get into the guys who actually kind of can make an impact on your team. Not even, that feels like the wrong way to put it. The guys that might be available, Arvidsson, Skinner, and Podkolzin. So I've got the ownership threshold set to 50% here, and the top available option is Victor Arvidsson, who inside the 50% ownership threshold or lower is in the 94th percentile for points. He plays 88% of games, so he's going to be available. The goals, the assists, the shots, the power play points, all pretty good percentiles. His periphery is not so great. Not taking a ton of faceoffs, not taking a ton of penalties. Blocks and hits are, right around 40 and 30%, but he's an offensive guy under 50%, and he's 12% rostered. So if we even go to 12, he's probably even higher. 94 or 81 percentile in goals. So don't hate him there for that. It's just if McDavid and Draisaitl come back, like where he's at right now changes a whole lot. And that's where we start to see, a bad investment come out, because yes, he could be, let's say, for example, he's line 1, power play 1 right now, but then McDavid and Draisaitl come back, and then he's line 3, power play 2. and all of a sudden you're already invested and you're kind of screwed. So all we're doing right now is fine tuning around our roster. Jeffrey Fuller here, one of the comments in the chat, he says it's great. This is a really good point here. The importance of fine combing your team leading into the championship week. We've been playing fantasy hockey for 25 weeks, and your team should be pretty much rock solid at this point, or at least it's the team that you've built that you're rocking with, and you don't have much of a choice but to go into your championship week with these guys. They should be dialed in, as he says, and those limited moves need to be strategic. And I mean that keys in on it perfectly. We are supplementing our roster, complementing our roster. We're not going to overhaul at this point. So Arvidsson, Skinner, Podkolzin are the guys that are Edmonton based that I feel would, like, if I'm looking at all the streamers that I'm going to talk about today, they're probably tier 3 guys. But they have one of the best schedules. So if that works out better for you, I'm not going to blame you, but I don't have a lot of faith in those guys in performing consistently to a point that, I don't know. San Jose, like, I like these guys a little better. Eklund, Toffoli, Ferraro, Smith, Wenberg, even Celebrini, if he's available at 61% rostered. These guys have the feel of, big fish, little pond, where Arvidsson is a little fish in a big pond, especially when those guys come back. And the same thing for Skinner. And you never know what's going to happen to their deployment. But San Jose, these guys are top 6, top power play for the most part, with the exception of maybe like Ferraro, Wenberg, and whoever they decide to knock off the top power play between Smith, Toffoli, Eklund. On a day-to-day basis. But I feel like there's going to be more ice time. There's going to be more opportunity from these guys in San Jose than what we would see in Edmonton from the other guys. So those are the players that I like there. If we want to look at what the BPA table thinks about San Jose guys, Eklund is at the top there. He's 93rd percentile in points. Goals, 79th percentile. Assists, over 90. Shots, he's doing really well. Power play points, 93%. And then the periphery is not really there. He actually is scoring 93% percentile of shorthanded points, which can mean 5 shorthanded points for what it's worth. But he plays 100% of the games so far this season. He's going to be available. He's a left wing only at 20% rostered. I don't hate Eklund, but I do kind of dislike San Jose with what they are right now. Askarov's right behind him, but he only gets 19% of the games in San Jose. So take it for what it's worth. Toffoli is the next skater available. 37% rostered, left wing, right wing. Points, he's 79th percentile. Goals, 93 percentile. Shots, he's doing really well in. Power play points, doing pretty well in. So he scores out pretty well by the BPA ranking here. Will Smith right behind him. He's super cold right now, so these numbers are kind of dipping a little bit. One of the features I'm thinking about too is adding a date range to this so you can see how guys are doing over the last 30, 45 days, whatever, or maybe at games. Because I like to, if you do 30 days, it might be 10 games for San Jose, but it could be 12 games for Edmonton. So when you see certain fantasy points and things like that, Edmonton's going to skew heavier because they have 2 extra games. So I like to do like 10 game, 15 game, 20 game, because you're evaluating everybody on a level playing field. So I'm thinking I might give you guys both options, but I personally like 10 games versus 10 games versus 10 days versus 10 days. And I think game to game is a little bit better for evaluation. My tier 2 streams, teams to stream from. Calgary is going to kick it off. I think there's a ton of options to be had in Calgary. Nazem Kadri at 74%. He's kind of like the guy. I have Huberdeau in here, like I promised at the top of the show. He's over the season, which is what these percentiles are talking about. He scores out pretty well. Under 60% ownership, he's in the 96th percentile for points, but he's on a super cold streak right now. And Calgary's kind of like, you remember that 10-game rolling average chart that I showed earlier if you're watching on YouTube, or head on over to the FHFH hockey or FHFhockey.com and check out the team chart that's right there on the homepage. Calgary's kind of like plummeting right now. They're in bottom third by way of 10-game rolling average goals for per game. But Huberdeau is definitely contributing to that. He's on a cold streak, but could be one of the better players if we're looking at it from a season lens. So back to 50% rostered. Blake Coleman grades out the best on Calgary because there is a banger skew to the score here, but try eligible for Blake Coleman at 29% rostered. He's got 3 off nights in that week. So I don't hate Blake Coleman right here. If we're talking about every single streamer that we're going to talk about, I'd probably have Blake Coleman pretty high up there. At least for like the first half of this 11-game slate. And then you can kind of bounce around him. I love the versatility of the try eligibility, the category coverage, so that I can speak to a wider array of leagues out there, because fantasy hockey is different than fantasy football, where, most leagues are, half PPR or PPR. So Coleman seems to fit the most amount of leagues right now. He's going to give you offense if you're into that. He's going to give you those bangs if you're into that. So Coronado ranks out second right now at hits and blocks aren't there, but in the 50th percentile. He's doing pretty well in points, shots, power play points, things like that. Morgan Frost grades out the next best, which is surprising. I would have thought maybe like a Pospisil or a Sharangovich or even a Farabee, but Frost is up there. Maybe it's the faceoff wins that are really tilting this one, but the blocks are up there, power play points. He's getting a lot of assists. It's just the points and the goals that aren't exactly, top tier by way of percentile. They're right there in the 50s. So Frost is out there, 3% rostered. He's definitely going to be available for you as center. So when you're center only, then I do kind of lean for off night preference, I guess, because that's a tough one. We're going to talk about that again with Cirelli when I get to Tampa next. So we talked about Sharangovich, Pospisil, even like Backlund, if you're so inclined. But I think Coleman and maybe Huberdeau might be my 2 top streamers coming out of Calgary. Tampa Bay Lightning are next, and that's where Anthony Cirelli, the center only, is going to grade out the best. Looking really good in all of his percentiles outside of hits, which is really strange because Cirelli has been somebody who hasn't been like, he doesn't carry hits for you, but he contributes. Over the last few years, he's been like kind of around a hit a game from what I recall. So in terms of like points, goals, he's grading out really well in the 90s and even shots too. So good on him for that. He grades out really well. I'd probably have him right up to where with like Coleman, some of the guys from San Jose, like Eklund, I really like, and Toffoli, I'd even take a chance on. Coleman, I think I said him. Nick Paul would be my next guy, especially if you're in like hits. He's going to give you some face-offs too. And the power play points, he's all in power play too, so take that for what it's worth. And then OBJ, Oliver Bjorkstrand, would be the next guy. His deployment is kind of a little rowdy up and down, but the shots are great. The power play points, he's been getting intermittent power play time, so have that for what it's worth. Darren Radish, if he's getting some power play time, I don't think he is anymore. I think it's going back to Hedman at this point, but his power play points looking pretty good in terms of the percentile ranks, but that's going to be entirely deployment based. Like his power play points rank that high because of the times he's been on power play 1. So if he's not on power play 1, this chart and that score is not going to apply. Also look at Yanni Gourde if you're in a deeper league. I don't like him as well as I like Nick Paul or Anthony Cirelli, or even OBJ at this point, but I think Cirelli would be my top stream from Tampa. The next team to talk about is the New York Rangers. Will Cooley is going to jump out if we're looking for hits. That's an easy bet. Look at this. There's only 7 players who are under 50% rostered worth talking about. Lafreniere is right there too. Grades out really well in the points department, but Will Cooley's a little more well-rounded because he's getting you PIMs. There's short-handed opportunity there as well, and his offensive production is actually pretty good. Like he's almost like a diet or like a Big Lots Kiefer Sherwood out of New York, and he's got left wing, right wing eligibility, 2 off nights in the first week. So I like Cooley. Might be a tier 2 stream for me. Lafreniere, I I don't hate it, but it is what it is. And then we talked about Braden Schneider a little earlier. Look at that, 92nd percentile in blocks and 58th percentile in hits. The offense all below 50, but above 40. So he's looking okay. Not awesome, but if you need hits and blocks, I think Braden Schneider is definitely somebody to check out. Keandre Miller is going to get you those blocks here. He's getting the 75th percentile. Will Borgen, no, let's not even talk about him. Yeah. All right. Next team to talk about, Detroit. And this one's interesting. So, Kaner's look pretty good. Obviously he's above 50%, so he's not going to be one that we're talking about explicitly here. But Mrazek, if he returns, he's out with a head injury right now. But if he gets those, one or two or both of the back-to-back games, I think there's going to be a little bit of value from those. So, like if you need 2 starts, Mrazek, Talbot, if Lyon comes back, he's going to be, he is healthy right now, but if he plays those games, I wouldn't feel as good with Lyon as I would with Mrazek or Talbot, but go check him out. I mean, Talbot himself, who's healthy and playing, he's played in 62% of Detroit's games this year, is only 42% rostered. So he grades out the highest in the BPA table out of Detroit. Marco Kasper right behind him, looking pretty decent. Center left wing, 10% roster. JD Compher, I think the table likes him because he does pretty well on faceoffs. So that's what that is. Tarasenko's available. I don't know if I'd look at him, but I think Mrazek, Kasper, and Talbot are the only guys that I'd really want to talk about out of Detroit here. We're moving into the tier 3 teams to stream from, which is where we're going to find LA, who I haven't talked a lot about this episode, but I feel like their schedule is decent enough. If we go back up to that 4-week forecast, just make sure I'm starting at the beginning. LA actually grades out decently. Like they're in the what are they? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th best schedule rest of the season. They've got 6 games, 3 off nights. Their opponents are very friendly, below league average opponent spread. So, they're decent, but they're right around league average. So they're not seeing a tough schedule. They're not seeing an easy schedule. But I think there's a ton of options out of LA. Quinn Byfield's going to be front and center for me, 58% rostered. So he is above the range that I like to talk about for availability, but he's certainly in that just go check territory, try eligible, kind of on a hot streak right now, looking really good. Warren Fogel's a guy that I really, really like too. So he doesn't get the power play time, but he's kind of hitting all boxes around. LaFerriere has had his moments too. So I wonder if he can't find some, some extra luck or something like that. But Philly Deneau is another one worth checking out. There's some bangs to be had here too. Like Trevor Moore grades out really well in the offense department, but the bangs is where you're going to look at like Gavrikov for blocks and hits. That's where we're going to look at like Mikey Anderson, Joel Edmondson. Edmondson is going to do both. Mikey Anderson's going to do both hits and blocks. He's even going to give you PIMs. So if you need some bangs, I think that's one place to go. Anaheim's got a bunch of options as well. Mason McTavish is kind of on a hot streak right now. Him and Leo Carlson are both guys worth talking about in terms of like recent trends and things like that. Lucas Dostal is going to get a bunch of games the rest of the season. So, I don't love their opponents rest of the season. They're one of the tougher teams that they actually have the hardest schedule remaining in terms of like opponent win percentage average. Detroit right behind them too. So that's going to be tough for Talbot. I mean, I'm glad I looked at that because Talbot, Mrazek are going to have some tough games ahead of them. But again, Detroit's kind of like inside that conversation for the wild card. I don't think they're going to make it. Like I think Montreal's done enough to secure that wild card spot, but Detroit, the Rangers, and Columbus are kind of all giving it everything to get that final wild card spot. So I like where those teams' heads are at right now in terms of exploiting some of the effort that they're putting forth. Anaheim, that's where you're going to look at McTavish, Dostal, Lacombe, Terry, guys that are out there that have been reliable this season in terms of relative to the players we're talking about. Okay. So, and then like guys like, Vetrano are actually pretty decent as somebody just to hold on to for the rest of the season. Zegras I'd have like ranked a little bit lower. Good for offense. You're not going to get much of periphery out of him. So it depends what you're looking for. And there are a ton of bangs. Gudis, Truba. I mean, those are guys that are tried and true for those things. So check those guys out if that's what you're into. Montreal, love what they got going on for them in terms of momentum and things like that. Their schedule, where do they rank out? They're right under like LA and Anaheim, so not far below. Their opponents look pretty good for the rest of the season. They are one game short of the pack, the rest of the guys that we're talking about, but they do have 3 off nights. All the other teams that we've talked about so far have 6 games, 3 off nights. Montreal's the first with 5 games, 3 off nights. So, every game matters at this point, but Montreal, they're, how do I want to put this? So like 5 games of Montreal versus 6 games of like, Minnesota or one of those other teams that are performing really poorly offensively. I think that's about a wash. Like, even if you get that extra game, the way that Montreal is playing right now, I think you get just as much output from those guys. And, Slafkovsky, if he's out there, obviously pick up the big name guys, but under 50%, that's where we're looking at line A. Brendan Gallagher just hit 20 goals, so he's actually a surprising story for this season. Josh Anderson is out there worth talking about. Dobesh, I don't know if I'm really picking up a backup goalie right now. I think I would stray away from that. I would look at guys like, Gallagher, Anderson, line A, and that's kind of where I draw the line. Like Christian Dvorak, no thanks, but New Hook. It depends on the depth of your league and what you really have available to you in terms of options, right? So the main guys I'd be looking at are line A, Anderson, Gallagher, under 50%. Columbus, we can start to talk about some of these guys. I just want to breeze through them. This is what I've got. Boone Jenner, I think, regardless of how like kind of mid their schedule is right now, I think Boone Jenner is one of the more valuable ads. He's 46% rostered. He's like just under the threshold of 50% for us to talk about. Grades out really, really well in most of the categories, 96th percentile in points, like just looking solid. No off nights, which is the tough bit to kind of chew down. So Columbus has 6 games, 1 off night next week. So the BPA table is only considering this week. That's why it says no off nights. So with that off night, you get 1, and it's next week. But I like Boone Jenner a lot in category leagues, and he's even providing value in your points leagues too. He's been really good, especially with the assists. Fantilli is another one to look at. He's 28% rostered, center only. So those off nights, like no off nights this week, starts to scare me a little bit. But if you can get somebody like a Kent Johnson who's tri-eligible, who you have a little more flexibility with in terms of like dancing around those heavy nights and things like that, then it starts to make a little more sense. Sean Monahan right above 50% at 52%. He grades out the best. He's just missed a bunch of time, but he's back. So at 52% rostered, I think if Monahan's out there, you got to at least check him out and see if he makes sense for you. Buffalo, the hottest team in the league right now. Lots of guys that are having fun just playing hockey. McLeod is one that I think is, Jesus, where's his ownership even right now? Why is he 11%? Why did he not show up? Am I fucking blind? Anyway, there he is. Okay, so on a hot streak for offense. He's looking really, really strong. There's other guys like, Jason Zucker, who his percentile ranks are so high because of his early season. So again, another reason I need to kind of put a recency bias into this BPA table a little bit. But guys like Owen Power, I think are good for secondary offense if you're in a deep league. But the main players to look at, Jack Quinn, JJ Paterka, I think it would be another one too. I think he's a little too high ownership to be considered. 52% rostered, but he grades out really well in all of the offensive percentiles. So Paterka would be one to check out. I think McLeod is probably the hottest option right now in Buffalo. So go get you some. And Jason Zucker, I like him just based on his body of work so far this year. So he's got it in the tank. He just needs to put it together this last week. The New York Islanders, man, this sucks. Just I hate talking about them. There's not a ton that goes on there. JGP grades out the best by the BPA table. Anders Lee, I think if you're looking for shot volume and goals, kind of a Hail Mary there. Just I don't like what the Island. Oh, they're on right now too. Well, this is probably a rerun, but yeah, what the Islanders can put together game to game, you never know. They're not really a high offense, high octane team. So Kyle Palmieri out there too. That's kind of where I'd start and stop my search. Tony DeAngelo, I think, deserves at least a mention for power play time and things like that. Carolina, always a risky move just based on like where guys actually line up, but Taylor Hall's hot as hell right now, and he's 37% rostered. Logan Stankoven, worth checking out at least, and then Jackson Blake would be the guys I'd talk about in terms of like who's performing lately, who's got deployment lately, and I hate Rod Brindamore. Toronto, let's get there. Matthew Nyes, if he's out, like 54% rostered, like if he's out there, he quickly hops to the top. And you can really see the banger bias start to show in the BPA table, because that's where Scott Lawton comes into play. Bobby McMahon, bit of a Hail Mary, I think. But he grades out really well in the offensive categories out of Toronto. And then you can look at, I mean, I'm not into OEL, Max Domi, no thanks. I think the only guys worth talking, like I might take a flyer on Scott Lawton if we're in a deep league, but Matthew Nyes front and center, and then Bobby McMahon would be my next offensive option. So those, like the top tier ads for me out of Anaheim, I'd look at McTavish. Out of Buffalo, Ryan McLeod, Jack Quinn, and Jason Zucker. Sean Monahan and Boone Jenner would be my Columbus guys. Taylor Hall, Jackson Blake out of Carolina. Out of San Jose, Toffoli, Eklund. I think if we're talking LA, I don't think I talked about anybody out of LA. Maybe. Oh, yeah. So I talked about LaFerriere, yada, yada, yada. I think Kuzmenko, who I didn't mention previously, is somebody worth checking out. He's got the deployment, but hasn't done much with it. I think, if you can find somebody on the waiver wire who's maybe flown under the radar, maybe a Nishushkin if he's out there, even a JJ Paterka out of Buffalo, depending on whether he's available or not. And then my second tier, Leo Carlson starts to sneak in, Trevor Zegras out of Anaheim, Blake Coleman. I would actually have him higher up. And then Detroit, that's where Marco Casper. Columbus would be Kent Johnson. And then that's where I'd have like the New York Islanders guys too, Anders Lee, Kyle Palmieri, Tony D. I think I'd probably throw Nick Paul and Bjorkstrand in the second tier. Probably have Sorelli in the top tier there. I think Arvidsson and Skinner fall into this category solely on schedule. And, I hope they work out. Like, I hope that turns into the right thing. Third tier, like Will Smith, Coronado, Frost, like all those random Calgary guys can fall into here. Pod Colson, I guess, if he's got the deployment. And if anybody else that I talked about, I think kind of like falls into there. And then, we talked about Huberdeau. If for some reason, like a Jared McCann or a Matty Beniers is out there, like Seattle's one of those teams that you can ride and then cut and then kind of like backfill the rest of your roster just based on how their schedule looks. If you're playing up until the very last day, maybe a Pavel Dorofiev if you're into Vegas, who actually has one of the not so great schedules, 5 games, 1 off night to finish the season. Or ride like one of those hot teams. Buffalo, I think, is the best because their schedule matches their hotness. But like St. Louis, I think there's some options there. It's just their schedule is brutal. 4 games left, 2 off nights. Not much to dance around there. But if you can find somebody that's playing on a really hot streak, go for it. Some category guys, we talked about Ferraro, we talked about Miller, Braden Schneider. If you're looking in New York Islanders, like Ryan Pulak's out there for you. In Winnipeg, like Luke Shen, guys can do that for you there. I think Winnipeg is one of the better banging teams in terms of how many guys they have that bang. Anaheim's up there too with Trouba and Gudis. If we're looking at guys who can see some power play time, I think Jackson Lacombe is top of the list. Tony D, maybe, because I think that tweet just came through that Dobson was on the top power play. I don't know if they're running two defensemen still. I know that was something they were doing. Matt Grzelcyk out of Pittsburgh, Lev Shinov out of Chicago, getting some power play time. Maybe like a ghost for Carolina if he's for some reason available. Owen Power if Dahlin keeps flip-flopping on whether or not he's playing. So just stay on top of that stuff. If you need goalies, we can get into that. What time is it? 1:40. Yeah, I got time. I'm taking the boys to go see Minecraft at 4, so I'm sure they're not making any noise upstairs, which worries me. Hopefully they didn't go outside. It's kind of like rainy. Goalie streamers, I think Mrazek is going to lead the way if he gets healthy, but Cam Talbot, 42% rostered. He's one guy that I'm looking at. Charlie Lindgren's going to play a bunch of games. Lucas Dostal is going to play some games. Sammy Montembeault, just with the way Montreal's playing and getting into the playoffs and things like that, I think riding that train is pretty good. Like the Habs are playing really well. Some other options, like maybe a Frederik Andersen, Anthony Stolarz if he's available, maybe Vejmelka, Tristan Jarry if you're feeling really froggy, go for that one. So I think just to round out this episode, guys, feel free to hit me up because I do got to run. Hit me up in the Discord, shoot me a DM, tag me in the chat, or just talk to the other 3,000 people that are in there. I think basically just like trust your fundamentals. You maximize those games played, try to get as much volume as you can without benching folks. So again, find a good balance between volume and off nights in terms of like just straight games played and straight off nights. I think, getting those 6-game team streamers is key, but I also think if you need to dance around heavy nights, then start to lean towards the off nights a little bit. And those 4-game teams like Boston, Colorado, those are the only, St. Louis is up there too, and Pittsburgh, even Minnesota with only 4 games left for us this season. So as soon as we start to clear out those guys, whether it's their last game or if they're starting to drag you down, just pitch them and move on to somebody else. Like right around the middle of the week, and watch the injuries, watch the goalie starts, watch if players are getting rested or things like that. You just you got to be ruthless. Like this is it. So, and you want to make sure that you're playing both weeks. You want to make sure whether or not your acquisitions reset for next week. They're probably not going to. I think that's standard. Check it out. Maybe Commish did something for you. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for the week previews for this year. So just want to remind everybody how we kind of like treat the rest of the season. I'm pretty sure the boys are going to do one last weekend preview and touch on next week. But then we're going to be taking our hiatus where we kind of just recoup. We're going to watch the playoffs and hang out. And then we're going to come back at you with the Dynasty series, which is wildly popular. Big, folks are pretty stoked about the Dynasty series. So I'm going to try and get some, some good pundits on here that want to talk. Like Will Scouch comes most years. Scott Wheeler has been a staple for us. So I'm going to reach out to these guys, see if they've got the time this year. If there's any other prospect people that you guys want us to try and reach out to, feel free to drop me a line, see if there's anything I can do to get these guys on. That's going to be it for jump in the Fantasy Hockey Discord for all the off-season stuff that we're going to be doing just to stay up to date with what we got going on. We're big on mock drafts, slow mock drafts all off-season. So hit us up, stay in touch. We love you guys. Thanks for hanging out.
those turd nuggets?